so we can go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for joining today. My name is Chad Boley. I'm the broadband manager here at the Wyoming Business Council. And then joining us today, we have Mitch Herget, who will be presenting where we are with the BEAD process. And this meeting is being recorded, and it will be posted on the Wyoming Business Council BEAD website following this meeting. So without further ado, Mitch, I will hand it over to you.
Okay, wonderful. Once the presentation's on the screen, I'll start going through it. And full disclosure, my child's home from school for the summer, and I hear him jumping right outside this door. So if something happens, we'll all have a good laugh. All right, so today we're going to talk about a few things, which is BEAD Milestone 1, semi-annual reports, and the grant management system, EUNA, used to be known as Amplifund. In Wyoming, we've not used Amplifund EUNA before. We had a Salesforce platform for the work we've done previously with subgrantee selection. So this will be new to some of you. For some of you that have worked in other states as well that have had EUNA and Amplifund is going to look very similar. But today the main focus is preparing you for EUNA, Amplifund going live, and telling you some upcoming events and things that you can start preparing so that when it is live for you to begin entering in your information, you have a running start. Next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about Milestone 1. I think that's going to be important to a lot of you as well, because that's how you get your first batch of money. So that will be exciting. I will go through those details. I want to talk about some upcoming reports that you'll need to participate in. And then I want to talk about next steps, which is the webinar walkthrough, webinar where we walk through EUNA grants specifically on June 29th. Today, we're going to tee up the things that we're going to need from you. And then on the 29th, the expectation is that our team will walk through the portal step by step so you understand how to get your information in for milestone disbursement, how to look at the information you need to provide for some of the reporting that is required as well. And then from there, we can turn you loose immediately to start uploading information. And then, of course, if there's any questions or confusion, there's always be outreach to WBO and get some technical assistance that way. So I want to talk about milestone 1. This is the project plan milestone. So if you turn your attention to Appendix A, or B rather, of the program guide, I almost said A there, but Appendix B, which starts on page 66. I think the meat and potatoes of the project plan milestone deliverables are on 68. So on the published guide on the website, you'll find directions on what's required for that specific milestone submission. And then additionally on the website, there'll be some additional templates and documents for you to download, fill out for that project plan submission, and then upload into the EUNA portal. It'll be relatively straightforward. What we'll do is when that information's in, we'll do a cursory review to make sure it's complete and that we understand it. And then what we're going to do is schedule a meeting with you, the provider, to make sure that we understand all of the details of the project plan and make sure that we're fully aligned between what the state is understanding and what you're trying to do so that we can move forward as effectively, efficiently, and expediently as we can as we move into the other phases of the program. So that will all happen through that process. I want to touch a little bit on the documentation that gets uploaded. And so I'll go through the list below. A lot of this was covered in a previous webinar where we talk through what is expected in the project plan milestone specifically. In this, what we want to see is an updated location list. You'll all have a location list that's assigned with your BEAD award. However, what we want to know from you is how you're going to phase this. Some of your projects may be large enough that you're not going to do it all in one summer. It may happen. You may engineer a component year 1. You may engineer another component year 2. We're giving you agency on how you break up your projects into defined phases. So that updated location list document will help us track your progress and basically associate each of your BEAD awarded locations to those phases. So then we know how to manage and work with you on your project as we move forward. One of the other items that we want to have at time of submission is the EHP questionnaire. This is something that has gone out already, and we've seen a lot of folks return this to us. The sooner you get this to us, the better, because it can help us move forward with the EHP work that the state has to do that benefits all of you. We require it to be done certainly by the time we get to the project plan milestone, because if you haven't got this far, then you really haven't considered the full ramifications of what environmental requirements are going to have on your project plan. So the latest we want to see it is when you're looking for a submission of this, but the sooner you do it, the better you're going to be. And so we have a mechanism for you to submit that into the state, I think through email at this point, and we'll start the process. So what it may be for some of you is just a resubmission of something that you've already sent us and we've already moved forward with. So it is still required, but that is the requirement for the milestone submission. Project timeline. In the application phase, we knew that, from the time that we made awards to the time that contracts were signed to the time that NTA let us move forward, there would be some disparity, right? So we had all of the timelines based on month 1 to month 48, knowing that month 1 could be any time, right, when you sign your contract. We're looking for an updated project timeline. It'll look very similar to what you've submitted before, with some additional granularity to help us understand that if you are phasing your project into discrete pieces, we just want to know what those individual timelines are and what we should be expecting from that as well. That template also allows you to tell us when your anticipated milestone submissions are going to be for the subsequent milestones. That way we can manage against those and make sure that we are staffed to quickly respond to those submissions and make sure that cash flow is as effective and efficient for you as possible. Project shape files are required at this time as well. Knowing that a lot of you may have not actually done full designs yet, these will be more or less routes and infrastructure in relation to your awarded broadband serviceable locations. What we want to see here, though, for sure, is if you are doing phasing to help break that infrastructure into the specific phases through the project plan, we should know what locations, what infrastructure is all tied to the specific phasing that you want to do. Again, the concept of phasing is about making sure you can build your projects in a way that meets these BSL thresholds that are program wide, so that you can get paid on an effective clip that aligns with reality. The permit status summary. This is something that's really important for us as well, but also is going to be important to NTIA. There's a mandate on the states as well as the subgrantees to provide information about their permitting status, because this has to get reported up to NTIA on a semi-regular basis. It also has to be published publicly as well as part of the requirements. We do need to know where you stand at your preliminary at least, of where you believe you're going to have permits with what specific entities and when you're going to be needing to submit those permits, so that we can properly inform those entities ahead of time to help with the expediting those permits and making sure that we're not caught off guard. We realize that when you get through further phases and you do design engineering, or you get out there and start construction, you find that there's permits that we're maybe not accounted for. That's okay. What we just need to know from your existing routes, or your existing planned routes rather, what you're looking to do, so that we can help point you in the right directions and make sure nothing is missed. So that is what we're looking for there. Evidence of expense tracking, match obligation, and record retention. This is a simple document where you articulate that you have all of these in place to move forward. This is the only time we ask for this document up front. This is an ongoing process throughout the life of the program, that part of compliance is making sure that you have proper expense tracking, that you are meeting your match obligation, and you have record retention. Quarterly desk reviews, reporting will make sure that we are keeping on top of that. But before we have any money come down to you, we want to make sure that you have certified and have information for us there as well. One of the things that we have done with an update to the EUNA grants software is we're eliminating the need for the evidence of match obligation. Through the EUNA portal, we are going to revise how you enter the information. So it's one less document you have to download, update with every milestone. This will save you a lot of energy in the long run. We want to try to find efficiencies. Part of the reason we're doing templates is to give you efficiency, so you're not making things from scratch or having to figure out what we're asking for. We want to make it as simple as possible. We found a further efficiency in leveraging the capabilities of the EUNA portal. So that's just one thing that you will not have to deal with going forward. Between now and when we roll out the next meeting where we go through exactly how this work is done, we'll endeavor to update some of the grant materials on the website that will tell you are required to do this, we'll make sure that gets removed from some of that documentation, and so you know going forward. But the EUNA portal will reflect what you need to submit, and this will not be one of those items. And then lastly, for those fixed wireless projects that are awarded, or if you have a hybrid project with fiber and fixed wireless, there's a design template that you all would have done in the application phase as part of your submission. We're asking for an update to that that includes proper parameters and any new thinking that has happened since the time of your award and now. One thing to point out is with these specific deliverables, these are things that are going to be asked for through the life of the program, whether it's the project plan now, engineering, design phase, the construction as-built phase. We're asking for the same sets of materials, just updated and iterative. We're not asking for hundreds of different documents. We're asking for a subset of documents that you continue to update along the way. Again, trying to find as much efficiency for you to convey information to us to do our jobs. Part of this documentation and information you're providing is to offset the need for that rigorous invoice review process that many of you are familiar with previous grant projects, including the CPF program here and in other states. So ultimately, this should be much less work than what you're going through now, trying to provide this information. A lot of it is information that you need for yourselves anyway, and a lot of this is information that we do need to convey to the NTIA along the way. So wanted to lay that out. We're not ready for you to start uploading this information to the portal, but as these are all specific templates that are available today, if you are eager to begin, or maybe you've already done so, you can start filling these out through the guidance in that program guide, which is accurate for these items, as well as following the template instructions. So when you are ready to submit, it'll be simple as taking those completed documents that you have and begin that upload process. Once those come in, I just want to be clear. Once you submit those to the state, they are identified to us. We need to make sure that all of the information is correctly uploaded. And once we know that it's complete, that will be passed on to a team that reviews the documentation. If it's woefully insufficient, we'll make sure you're notified for some curing right away. If it's in the right ballpark, we'll continue to move towards that meeting where we'll have some very specific questions to make sure that our understanding aligns with your intention. And then there might be a little bit of curing after that conversation, but then I would expect to be able to move forward with a solidified project plan for you to get through the next 4 years. Again, if any of these project plans and information change, part of the quarterly desk reviews that we'll be conducting, you can help inform us, and we can continue to learn and grow from what is changing in your projects. We do expect updates on this on a regular basis, as well as when we get to specific milestones. The other item that is EUNA, or grants management software adjacent, is that are some reporting that is due. We have our semi-annual and quarterly reporting due July 14th. So part of the demonstration will be how you can get that information to us in the portal. That will happen on the 29th, I believe, that presentation that I spoke about. There's 2 reports that are due coming up on this date. It's the semi-annual report, which is information that we need to obtain from you and pass on directly to NTIA for their requirements. We will give you a full breakdown of what that looks like in the following webinar that we put on, and then also a quarterly report for information that the Wyoming Broadband Office needs to manage these projects internally. That will happen every quarter. In this case, July 14th will be the due date for both of these reports. Knowing that we are currently in the process of either signing contracts or mostly have signed contracts, there may not be a lot of progress to report and update. We still do need these reports, and so we will lay out the information in the following webinar we conduct on the 29th.
And Mitch, sorry to interrupt. I didn't preface this from the start. If attendees, if there are any questions y'all have, please use the chat button, and we will answer those as they come in. So Mitch, sorry to interrupt, but
no,
I wanted to
I
throw
think
that
we'll
out
have
there.
plenty of time to answer questions today, so more than happy to field some questions that come in that we can answer. And for any question that we're not able to fully answer for you, we will certainly take that back, and we will publish a written response in an updated FAQ or through additional information that WBO sends out to the group. Which is a great segue, Chad, into the next slide, which is questions, comments. We're happy to receive some, so then we can answer anything additional, again, I'll use the dead space to remind everybody that um, the 29th is when we're going to dive into the portal specifically. Vince from the team who's on today will walk through each of the pages, the slides, the step by step on how this gets done. Some of you are familiar with this and it will be very familiar to you from your previous work. But if it's new to you, I really, really think it's important to be on, especially since this is not just a little bit different. This is very different from what Treasury has required in their program. So first question, is the semi-annual report due for all subgrantees or just subgrantees who have fully executed contracts? I'm gonna,
Great.
Morgan, do you have an answer to that one
Yeah,
specifically?
that's a great question. Just those that have executed contracts.
Okay, that's right. And at this point, again, for those that do have executed contracts, you have most likely not made tons, you have not received a disbursement yet by the time we get to the end of this month. And there are some other things that you haven't completed. So it's likely a pretty light lift for this first one, but I would expect in the next semi-annual report at the end of this year for it to be a lot more uh, detailed, I guess. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that's a great way to share. It's a definite preview into
Mhm.
what's going to be asked later on, but you all are in a great space in that it's brand new. So you won't have a lot to report, but you will have a preview on the questions.
Yeah, I would call it a warm-up round, right, for the real
Yeah.
one, which will be later, which is nice to have, right? Because we're not going to have to do the full thing this first go around. The next question is, do you have a link to sign up for the end of June webinar about the reporting deep dive? I believe,
That will be
Morgan,
coming
I'll turn
out
it to you.
soon. Yeah.
Okay, yes. Through the same mechanism that we've done last time to notify everyone here as well, I believe. It was a
Yes.
question, but yes, I will make it into a statement. I believe the same way. So, okay. Wondering about environmental. Once the questionnaire is submitted, what is the process? Do subgrantees wait, or should they be doing something in the meantime? What is the timeline? What timeline does WBO expect to issue the notice to proceed? So I'm gonna start to answer this. Then I would love Morgan to keep me on the rails should I not. Um, what we're seeing elsewhere, which you can do certainly as well, is you have a contract signed, and some people have started even before their contracts were signed. There's two distinct things that need to happen. The state needs to take the information that you give to us and that we need in a very specific format. We need to push that forward. We're the only ones that get to interact with the federal government's ESAP portal. And so we need an information from you guys to move forward on that front, which opens up the process. And it starts like the prerequisite nation to nation communication that the federal government does, but then allows them to start knowing that we're moving forward. It does not need to hold you up from working on the things that you need to do. And I'm not the environmental expert and Tim is not on, but there's a whole list of items that we have outlined. Maybe, Morgan, is it in the program
There,
guide, or is there a separate guide for what is required for environmental work?
yeah, that's a great question. There is an EHP guide, and we can make sure that that gets reshared with everyone. But what was I going to say? No, yes, we will reshare the EHP guide. And Michelle, we can take that question and maybe just do a little write-up that is perhaps shorter than the whole guide and share that out
Yeah.
with folks.
Yeah, I think at this point, there's nothing from our end stopping you from doing your work at this front. What we are here to do is, so let me be very clear on that as I saw
Wait a
Morgan say,
minute.
there's nothing that's stopping you from engaging on your environmental compliance work. There's a lot of things stopping you from breaking ground in any form or fashion. I'll clarify. We've seen in other states, folks have already engaged with their consultants to begin getting the requisite information, working through the various agencies in the state as needed to get approval and get the documentation together for NEPA compliance. Our job as the state broadband office is to validate the work that you're doing to make sure that it's correct. what we should in theory be doing is making sure that the direction you're going down is the correct one. Because what typically happens is if you fill something out wrong for environmental agency A, they have 90 days to respond to you. If they see something wrong, they kick it back and you have to start over 90 days. Our job is try to help you submit it correctly the first time, and that's where we get involved and support that when you're at a point ready to do that. This will be an involved process, and I believe there will most likely, Morgan and Chad, be continual either office hours or TA as we support. And if there are concerns or snags that you are finding in this process for yourselves, please reach out to WBO so we can find the best way to support you on this path forward, because we do understand that it is rigorous, it is complex, but we are here to help support the success of all the sub-recipients. Next question on this is, where can we find the form to submit the Q2 report? That will live, and I'm looking at Vince, that will live in EUNA grants with the details. A part of between now and the next webinar, it will be active, it will be ready, but we will walk through it specifically where you can find it and where to utilize that so you can jump right in. Ideally, as soon as the call is over, all of the information should be clear.
I just want to jump in and say, yes, it will be there, but to backtrack and remind folks, you can access forms and see things, and we know you have access to EUNA, but we ask that you do not submit things, because if you do, we will have to just flat out reject it as we are making some of those changes within the system.
And ideally, those changes are to keep you from having to do extra things for the next 4 years. So the idea is that we want to get it as right as possible to minimize your effort. And we appreciate you bearing with us as we make a couple minor tweaks to make sure that it saves you thousands of clicks over the life of the next 4 years. And that's what we're trying to do. And once we're there, which we will be by the time of that presentation, the goal is to turn everyone loose for jumping in there. And then, of course, questions can come into WBO for any additional TA or guidance as needed. Next question was, remind me of the date for the next webinar. Morgan, that is June 29th at 9 a.m. Mountain Time.
Yes.
And there will be a formal invite for that coming out through that same means as this one specifically, hopefully relatively soon.
Candace, we understand being click happy.
Yeah, for sure. Which we're trying to fix with EUNA grants, which is nice. I'll continue to fill some air while we give a few moments for any additional questions to come in. I'm very excited to be at this phase. Wyoming is one of the first states to be where we are. So it is, again, a testament to the providers here and the state broadband office pushing things forward and making good decisions, collaborating with all of you. And we're very thankful for the work that you've put in. And now we're ready to move forward to the point where we can start giving you some money and start having you do this work, which I think has been a long time coming for all of us. So we're very excited to move this forward and continue to execute on this program for the betterment of all folks in Wyoming. And we'll just give a few. I can keep talking forever because I'm really good at that part. I'll keep a couple more things. So in addition, we've talked about the 29th, 9 a.m. Mountain Time presentation. As needed, additional webinars will be posted. We know that as we move forward, there'll be new information that comes to light for all of us, right? And so as those pop up and warrant some larger TAs, we'll make sure that those are published well ahead of time and move forward. I will talk a little bit about sort of the impact of permitting. I touched on this with the permitting tracker that we need from everyone. One of the obligations of the state is to ensure that the permitting process for the BEAD program goes as smoothly as possible. There'll be most likely more guidance on that as we move forward of not just what we need, but how it's going to benefit and help you. We've seen this through the CPF program here in other states where there's been some surprise permits or surprises where the provider or the entity that is in charge of the permitting authority is in charge of it. They don't convey information correctly. And now we're up against deadlines in some cases to get our ditch crossing permits or our pole attachments or our BNSF or Union Pacific Railroad crossings that take a little bit of extra time. Having this information out in front of those entities early on will sort of protect us as a program, protect you as well, to say, hey, they've known about this for years at this point, right? We've done everything we can. And so the permitting mandate, while extra for the state, I think is really important for the success of these programs. As we are, again, wrapping up CPF in a lot of places, we see that there is some final crunches here with some final permitting. So making sure we can be on top of that is really critical.
Thanks, Mitch. I haven't seen any more questions come through, but I look forward to seeing everyone on June 29th at 9 a.m. Mountain. I'll be sending out correspondence to let everyone know as a reminder, along with the link to when that will happen. So again, I look forward to seeing everyone there. And thanks for your time joining today. If there's any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to me directly, and we'll get your questions answered. But that's all that I have. Thanks CTC, thanks providers for taking the time to join today. And have a great rest of the week. And we will all talk soon. So thanks again, everyone.